Okay, colleagues, let's get started. And again, a warm welcome to you all to the next DFMPC professional learning engagement in our series that we offer in collaboration with the CHSC. So Shira and colleagues, a warm welcome to you and everyone. And of course, Amanda, thank you so much for your attendance and participation today. When I understand that Paula has had to step away and isn't available to assist us in this particular session, but of course, such is the depth of experience and expertise within the School of Therapeutic Sciences. Here you are. So thank you so much for your attendance and your assistance today. Colleagues, we're in the third of the 21st century learning theme, engagements around that particular theme of the 21st century learning. We had started off with Paula presenting a journal club for us a couple of weeks ago. We then veered appropriately onto the SAHI conference and last week in terms of an engagement there. And now we return for a Tech Tuesday to see as to how we can look at some of the frameworks and tools by which we can apply the principles of 21st century learning. So a real welcome to everyone. And Amanda, without further ado, if I could hand over to you and welcome.
Thank you very much, and I really appreciate the introduction. Yes, Paula needed to step away, and I agreed to take over from her for today. I just want to share my screen. I think it should populate pretty soon.
Yeah, we can see you.
Yes, thanks for that, Shira. Yes, so the brief that I got was that we are discussing 21st century learning design skills as well as different apps. So I have chosen to talk about ICT for learning as a 21st century learning design skill because it overarches a lot of things. And there's even some practical tips and tricks towards the end of the session for those that are interested. So the big ideas of using ICT for learning is this is something that many people ask, especially now with things going fully online and with blended learning and hybrid learning and high flex learning becoming buzzwords. So how should students use ICT for learning, and when do they use it? So students use ICT to complete all or part of an activity. So by that we mean that ICT should be used for the complete activity, not for part of it, and it should form an integral part of the activity. One shouldn't be able to complete the activity without ICT. So for example, if you ask students to type a document in Word, that is not ICT for learning. But if you ask them to use an app to construct knowledge or to get knowledge, that is called ICT for learning. If we talk about the two slides were swapped around, apologies. If we talk about 21st century learning, I really recommend you looking at Look. They've created this image of...
Amanda, I'm going to interrupt you and just say that Paula used that article for the journal club for this group. So they have seen the image, but it won't do you any damage to just go over it again.
Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah. So because this is our base article that we found many things on. Yes. So 21st century learning is a learning framework within the connectivism. And then from connectivism, it branches out, and then it offers a practical teaching process that prepares students for the 21st century. And the reason why I am fond of 21st century learning and connectivism is because it connects to constructivism, which connects to game-based learning and gamification, which I am a fan of, and I believe that constructivism in education and connectivism is very important. If you talk about the use of ICT to support knowledge construction, then students generate ideas and understandings that are new to them. And the ICT supports knowledge construction, which is the knowledge construction part of a learning activity. For example, students use a computer to analyze scientific information. Like, for example, if you use REDCap or MaxQDA for data analysis, then that is the correct use of ICT for learning. And then ICT required for knowledge construction. So this is a repeat of the previous slide. It just explains it more because I thought I'm going to send the slides to everybody afterwards. And then something very important to remember is that many activities that require knowledge construction can also be done without ICT. So I've used the example of asking students to type something in Word, which they could write on a piece of paper as well. Or students can be asked to, lecturers sometimes give students an assignment to look for information on the internet, and then they see that as using ICT for knowledge construction. That isn't always knowledge construction because students can use an encyclopedia as well, even though that information might be outdated. It can still be seen as being able to complete the task without ICT. And then when students become designers of ICT products, students record a podcast and make it available on the internet, and through that they are taking information, making it their own, and creating a different product from that. So the product lasts behind the learning activity, and it can also be used or enjoyed by an outside audience. So in other words, it solves a real world problem. For all the 21st century learning design skills, there are rubrics available. And for this session, I've decided to show you the rubric for ICT for learning and how it works, or some people call it a rubric, other people call it a decision tree. And this is a tool to help you as a lecturer determine whether or not something is really useful or is really the correct activity. So the first question you need to ask yourself is does the students have the opportunity to use ICT? So for example, if you ask them to type something on a computer, or if you ask them to search the internet, that counts as the opportunity to use ICT. So if you answer no to this question, so for example, you only ask them to write on a piece of paper, that counts as a level 1 on this rubric. If you answer yes, you can ask yourself the next question saying, ICT supports the students' knowledge construction and learning. So in other words, can this activity exist without the use of ICT? If it can, then it's a level 2. If it cannot, then you can carry on to the next level, which is ICT is required for constructing the knowledge. So So the difference is between the supports and the requirement. So if you cannot do this activity at all without any ICT, then the answer is yes. Then you can go on to say, are students the designers of the ICT product? In other words, if they create a podcast or a video or a pamphlet or an app that uses an online pamphlet that uses ICT, then they are the designers. And then if students use more than one ICT tool for designing of an ICT product, then that is a level 6, which is the highest level. And not all activities need to be on a level 6 or should be on a level 6. It differs from activity to activity, but these the use of ICT also usually encourages collaboration in learning. So now I will go on and introduce you to a few apps that we are using. I just want to see why. Oh, there we go. So the first app that I want to introduce you to is Flipgrid. I'm not sure if people are familiar with Flipgrid. If you can maybe indicate in the chat if you're familiar with it, that would be appreciated. I just want to stop sharing my screen and then go over to the live demo. Okay, so Shira said she's used it before. Just want to see why it doesn't want to go over to sharing the screen. Just want to.
So Amanda, while you're busy getting into it, I'll tell you that some people haven't used it and some people have used it. So you've got a mix in the class.
Thank you. And then for the people who have used it, what did you find interesting about it? Any thoughts that you can share with us? Anyone in the chat? Okay. I will demo it while if you have any ideas or suggestions or want to share with us how you've used it before, you are welcome to jump in. All right, so this is what Flipgrid looks like. I've got many grids. This topic wasn't used, so I'm going to share the screen and the grid with you. So how you set it up is this was for orientation week. This was a demo for that. And then how you set it up is you have a topic. They have suggestions of topics for you where you can say, hello, I am so and so. This is one that they provide for you. You can change it in any way. And then you record a response by just clicking on it, and then you can record your response. And you can add effects to it as well. So you can write on it, you can add a notepad, you can do different things with it. And then other students can see the grid. We usually use this one as well. I have permission from the students to share this grid. So this was a show and tell grid that we did in a class. And then as you can see, there's 150 responses. You as the lecturer can decide if you want to moderate the content. So I've decided to moderate the content. So these two haven't been published because they probably published after the class. And then over here, you can see the name of the student. There were 21 views, and this one is an active one. You can also download the videos if you want to. So this grid works very well, or the Flipgrid works very well if students do group work and they need to evaluate something or do a specific observation. So they can take a tablet or a phone with them on a rural visit, take videos of the interviews and then load it to the Flipgrid, and then the class can see it or you as a lecturer can see it. This
Amanda,
also,
I'm going to interrupt you to say that Nabila used it, and she said the students put a lot of energy into the skill they performed. So Nabila, can I ask you to come in and explain, was it a clinical skill and they had to peer review, or were they just submitting for you to see if they did the skill?
Good afternoon, everyone. I didn't expect to be called.
Sorry, I'm not putting you on the spot.
No, it's okay. So it was a class activity I had. For the life of me, I cannot remember the skill. I think this was about 2 years ago. But they had to do a skill in different corners of the classroom, and I think I had another classroom. They videoed it and then they watched each other's. Luckily, we had a small enough group that I could show I could show the entire class all of the videos. And they did different components of the skill. So it was a lot of fun. It did take a bit of time, but it made them engage with the content in a way that they wouldn't have before. So I thought that was quite useful.
Yeah, yes, thank you for sharing that, Nabila. And many students feel very conscious and they're self-conscious and they don't want to record themselves. And for that, Flipgrid also has only a voice recording now. So if people don't want to show the image, they are welcome to just record their voice. Nabila, did you mark the videos, or was it only for the class discussion?
No, it was only for the class discussion.
Okay, because there's also rubrics that you can embed in Flipgrid, and then you can mark it from there as well. This, and then the last application that I want to show you about Flipgrid was at the beginning of the course, you can introduce yourself to the rest of the class. So over here, I created a video saying, hi, I'm your lecturer, blah, blah, blah. And then the students also had an opportunity to introduce themselves. This is a fun way of informally introducing yourself. The students also had to say what is their favorite, one interesting fact about you, and then also what are your expectations of the course. So they had a lot of fun with this. Are there any questions about Flipgrid specifically, or can I go on to Kahoot for now? Okay, so I'm going to go on to Kahoot to show you what Kahoot looks like.
Amanda,
yes.
Prof Cook has his hand up.
Yes, Prof Cook.
Thank you. I mean, I'm actually just trying to formulate my question as I'm thinking about it, because it just seems like, you know, the opportunity when we engage around these tools to look to their applicability in a particular context. Is it about? So I hear you in terms of an introduction, as you've described it here, so the students can, and you can introduce yourself as a course coordinator or as a lecturer or whichever, and the students can respond. We've typically, for example, we've in one of our rotations, Dr. Ruch will know, the students film themselves, video themselves doing a patient consultation or a role play around a patient consultation using one of the other students. And we dropped it. Why did we drop it? For privacy reasons. Why did we drop it? Because it was too. Because of when we were sharing the videos, that was cumbersome. We didn't sort of have a repository for them. And I'm just sort of thinking out loud, Amanda, if I may, because this seems to be a good repository for those videos and allows it allows them to be shared one with another. Am I correct?
Yes, yes. So unfortunately, Flipgrid doesn't provide a lot of privacy. So if, for example, there's patient confidentiality, I would not recommend using Flipgrid. But if it's a class discussion, like I know the physios usually when they need to do different observations and they want to discuss it as a class, they observe each other and then create in groups and then create a Flipgrid video per group, and then the whole class watch it together, and then they discuss where they agree or disagree with the group that's presenting. So for privacy issues, unfortunately, everybody can be able to see everybody's videos. But for a class discussion or just an introduction, I think this is a very useful tool. Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense. No, thank you. Just trying to brainstorm a little bit on its usage, on its different uses. Matty comes up with a couple of nice ones in the chat as well. But thanks,
Yes,
Amanda.
Matty. I know, Matty, can you please share a few of your thoughts with us?
No, I just thought that it might be a funner way of doing IPL. I'm always looking for more interesting ways of doing IPL and getting different kind of interaction. And then I also said, it could be a nice way of doing feedback. For us who do a problem-based learning curriculum, the students really get bored with some of the ways that we do feedback. So that could be, there's some nice ideas that you can kind of be creative.
Okay, thanks. The downside of using Flipgrid is data. Yeah, so unfortunately, because it's video, the data usage is quite high. Yeah, but if data is not an issue like before COVID, then it's easier to use. But I know of a few lecturers that have used it within COVID, and they just limit the videos. You can limit the videos from 10 seconds up to about 10 minutes. So you can just limit the amount of time that students have. All right. Are there any other comments? I can't see the chat, unfortunately.
Sorry, just to clarify, forgive me, I'm not even putting up my hand. Amanda, that's interesting. Do you set the parameters, you mean? They can't upload a video if it's not within the time parameter.
Yes.
Is that
yes.
right? Okay.
Yeah, so if you create a group, let me just show you. So I'm just going to call it test. And then the permissions are so you can only share within your organization. This changed recently. So I'm just going to say only people with wits.ac.za, email addresses or students or whatever you want to do. And then when I create the topic, so this is how you share it with students. And now when I create my topic, when I edit it, I can say this is what I want the introduction to be, and this is the topic. Do you want a password? And then here you set your recording. It's 15 seconds. And then up to 10 minutes. So you can decide there, and then the system wouldn't accept videos longer than 30 seconds. And then the students can upload the video, and then they can also download the videos for later use or whatever. All right, so that's where you set the time. So, and then you can also set topic moderation. I usually do that when it's a smaller class, or even if it's an assignment over some time, because students have done a few silly things. So yes. All right. Any other questions? Okay. So I'm going to go on to show you Kahoot. Has anyone used Kahoot before? You're welcome to pop it in the chat or just to say something. All right, so Kahoot, there are two apps that are very similar. It's Kahoot and Quiz. The difference between Kahoot and Quiz always was that you could assign Quiz to students, but now you can, since recent about a month or two, you can assign Kahoot also to students. And this is an app that asks questions. I thought, let me quickly demo what it looks like. So this is just a silly I Spy with my little eye type of game. You can add your own questions. You can do whatever you see fit. So the question is, what animal eye do you think this is? And then there's an animal eye, and then students need to select on their devices which one they think it is. And then they get an instant answer. There are many Kahoots readily available that you can just select and edit. A heads up, there's many spelling mistakes on the quizzes. And sometimes there's factual issues as well, but you can take the shell of another quiz and then edit it to suit you. So if I show you, let me look at Science Lab Safety. So the questions are readily available. It's helpful but not necessarily important to follow lab safety rules. And then the students would have different choices. Okay, so I can't edit this code, so you just need to check if you can use it, edit it, and then if you want to play it with your students, you can teach it or you can assign the quiz to students. If you assign it, they'll have a week or whatever time limit you decide on to complete it. If you teach it, it's instant. So if I select teach, we usually select the classic one. And then a game pin is shared with the students. They type it in on their devices and then the game starts. Or the, yeah, so this helped a lot, especially last year during the hard lockdown when we started playing this game with students. They said that they felt more connected and not so isolated. And they also went through the work as well because the lecturer set up quizzes about the work that they needed to study, and then they met up every once in a blue moon and then just played Kahoot for a few minutes, and then it did a lot for the morale of the students. Are there any questions about Kahoot or any suggestions of how you've used Kahoot before? Do you want me to show you how to set up a test or a quiz, how easy it is? Okay, while you think of questions, I'm going to just create a Kahoot to show you that it's quite easy. So you can type your question. You can say, what day is it today? And then you can say Monday. The first answer is the correct answer. So it's Tuesday, Monday. So there's 4 options. Friday, and then Saturday. And the question type is a quiz. The time limit to answer it is 20 seconds. And then there's a standard or a single select one. So you can, so they've upgraded Kahoot now to have a paid option as well. And I see if you want to be able to select more than one answer, you need to pay. But anyway, so you say single select and then done. And then there's your question. there's your first question. And then you can add as many as you want, and then you assign it or you can play it live.
Amanda, Matthew wants to know how data intensive using Kahoot is online.
We are not sure. I did do an experiment and it didn't really use that much data, and also the feedback from the students was that it didn't use that much data, but I can't tell you exactly how much data it uses. The only thing that I know that's very data intensive is Minecraft, which uses 2 gigs per hour. That was the worst. But that's also why we don't add a picture necessarily, because there you can add a video or something to it. So we just leave it blank, and then that we hope that that also saves data. And then on the student screen, only the 4 blocks appear. So yeah, so it's not that data intensive. Any other questions? Okay, so people also ask, can you use Kahoot for formal assessment? Unfortunately not, because the marks aren't available afterwards. I think this is a good app to use for baseline assessment or to see if everybody's still awake. And also, we also assign it from time to time if people need to watch a podcast. At the end, we then ask them to answer questions on Kahoot, and then we make sure that there is a leaderboard on the learning management system. And the students tend to want to be on the leaderboard, and they don't want, because if they haven't played it, their names doesn't appear. So that's also a way for you as lecturer to see if they are taking part.
Amanda, can I ask you, where would a game like Kahoot or this kind of learning or kind of formative assessment land up on your decision tree for the 21st century learning skill of ICT?
Okay, I'm going to
go
okay. Back there.
You're gonna get to...
No. I just want to stop sharing this screen.
Okay.
And then go back here.
Yanis wants to know if you've used Kahoot while you're on Teams.
Yes.
Okay, that's
and
interesting.
It works awesomely well.
Sorry,
yeah.
Can I just rephrase my question a little bit? So I know there's a Microsoft Teams integration for Kahoot. Have you used that so that it makes it easier for students to log in or not?
No, I haven't.
How that works.
I haven't used that yet, because I tried to use it twice, but that was already 6 months ago, and it crashed both times.
Okay.
So I haven't tried afterwards, but maybe you and I can play Kahoot and then see how it pans out.
That's a good way to think about it, because I do have to say that there's also an integration for Flipgrid on Ulwazi, and it works really awesomely in Ulwazi if you want to do a Flipgrid through the learning management system with a class.
I see Nabila says she's used Kahoot through Teams. Did it work well for you, Nabila?
It worked really well, but I used it through a shared screen, so not the application.
Yeah. I also used it through a shared screen. And then, can Kahoot only be used for synchronous learning? It can be used for synchronous and asynchronous learning if you assign the Kahoot to your class. Yeah, then you can open it up for a week or two, or whatever would suit you. But for asynchronous learning, the Quiz app works better. I've typed Quiz in the chat so that you can see the spelling. Yes, and then the Shira asked if the usage of Kahoot, would that be where would it be on the decision tree? I would say it would be a level 1 because it supports students' knowledge construction and learning. It is not absolutely required for the knowledge construction. Yeah, so there's actually a debate. That's why I'm like, okay, sure, I'll answer you now, because there's a bit of a debate around, is the ICT required for constructing the knowledge, or is it only supporting the knowledge construction?
Yeah,
And
I get that.
I'm of the opinion that it only constructs, because you can support the students in another way as well. That is not code. Yes, so I would put it at a level 2. I'm going to go back to my the sharing of my screen. And now that awesome black table is at the top, so I can't see my other windows. Okay, so the next app that I want to show you is very good for the curation of knowledge, and I believe also for knowledge construction, and that is the Wakelet app. I don't know if anyone has used Wakelet before. Wakelet is like Pinterest for academics, or Pinterest on steroids. And how it works, I have it installed on my browser because I use it so much. I'm using this browser specifically because I haven't installed it here, so that you can see what it looks like if it's not installed. What you do is you create a collection, and then you can decide if it's private, public, or unlisted. If it's public, everybody can see it. If it's unlisted, you need to share the link for people to see it. And if it's private, only you would be able to see it. So you give your collection a title. I'm going to call it ICT for Learning. And then there's this magical plus button. And over here, you can paste any web address, and then it would appear here. Or you can add text or an image or a bookmark or a PDF file. You can even embed tweets, and then you can change the layout as well. You can do media view, grid view, mood board, or a mood board. I like the mood board personally. And then the assignment that you could give to students is to say, create a Wakelet about the different 21st century learning design skills, or you can ask them to, what we've done before is, if we do a project-based learning, we ask them to record the whole process from getting the assignment all the way through to the submission of it. We've also asked students before to create a Wakelet with tips and tricks for learning, and then they needed to go and find information and add it to the Wakelet. So if I add text, I'm just going to say my information. Then it will populate, and the students can drag and drop it around. The downside to, you can even embed a Flipgrid video or a tweet or a YouTube video. The downside to Wakelet is it's easy to dump information. So students sometimes, or people sometimes, tend to not read what they are adding, and then they just end up dumping everything. So if we create a rubric for a Wakelet, we usually include the information makes sense, the flow is good, and we can see that the participant read the information. People also sometimes plagiarize in Wakelet because it's easy to dump information. Is there anybody that's used Wakelet before that can share some thoughts with us around what they used it for and if it worked for them?
So Matty, you lined yourself up in the chat.
Oh, my hat. Janine van der Linden, her postgrad students last year, the pediatric postgrad OT students, did the most fantastic Wakelet. It was informative and it was creative and pretty and very exciting. But our psychiatry students really didn't like it. So I don't know whether it was because of the class size or whether it was just the mind frame of the students, but the psychiatry students really battled, and eventually I just abandoned it. I decided, I'm not going to really battle. We'll find a different way of getting them to integrate the information. But yeah, so I mean, it can be extremely exciting.
Thanks, Matty. Yes, yeah, I've also done it this year with 2 groups of students, and but the assignment was group work, so it was collaboration. So they needed to form groups and then work together. The first group hated it. It was like pulling teeth. And they also didn't do very well with it. And then the second group, I was bracing myself for another pulling teeth exercise. And when I looked at their Wakelets yesterday, I was pleasantly surprised. So I don't know. I think some people love the app, some people hate it, but I find it very useful, especially if you do research on the internet specifically. You can just add it to your collection and then go back to it later.
So Amanda, what about it do you think the students don't like? Is it too difficult for them, or is the app itself a problem, or is the question that you ask them to do maybe a challenge? Why do you think they don't like it?
I think the first group couldn't find each other, the first class. The group members couldn't find each other. They found it difficult to figure out how to work online without knowing, because this is a group of students that doesn't know each other from a bar of soap. So they were allocated into groups, and then I think it's the group work aspect more than the app. While the second group of people, half of them worked together, and then they kind of formed a core group, and then they pulled everybody else in. Because the app, and I think it's also about digital literacy. I think the app itself is easy to use. You click plus, you find whatever you want, and you add it. But I think for people that are new in the digital space, might find it intimidating, and then on top of that, having to work with people that you don't know, I think that added to the stress as well.
So that's really interesting, because if the groups, it's a way of them getting to know each other by working together. And it strikes me you could use a Wakelet for something like differential diagnoses, where you can the app allows you to put in video clips and pictures, but also articles, so in support of, or statistics or that kind of thing. So groups can work together and each one work on a different one and pull their information.
Yeah, and it's easy to share as well.
Yeah, Prof. Cook has a question in the chat. Is it like Padlet, the online bulletin board?
Yes and no.
Sorry, yes, I just was introduced to Padlet a couple of weeks ago, and I sort of saw that as a essentially like just a platform, a space, a bulletin board, as I phrased it. Sorry, go ahead, Amanda. Is it different?
It's very similar, but I think Wakelet, you can add media to Wakelet easier, and also it's more shareable, and I find to combine Wakelets together is easier than Padlets, because last year at the beginning of the year we had a first year class that did a lot of work, and they had to do interviews with people and all sorts of things, and then create a whole project around it. So then every group created a wakelet, and then we stitched it all together in a big wakelet that we shared with the whole class, and then everybody could see everybody's work and learn from that. So it's very similar. All right, so I'm going to just go on to the last. I just want to show you an image. This is we've only discovered this app recently. It's called ThingLink. This picture we used last week with our SAI presentation, and it was the first one I could grab. So how it works is you take a picture of a venue or a place or whatever you want. I've seen ThingLinks about parts of the body, where somebody took a ThingLink of inside a skull. So what you do is you create an image, and then all over the image you can add clues. So there's a 3D printer. This is an image of the E-zone. So this is the 3D printer. That is a video of Ifunanati. So you leave clues all over the room, and questions for students to answer. And then this can be like a short quiz, or this one was this one was part of a bigger assignment. But what you can do is you can add dots and images all over the picture, and then students can find the clues and answer it. We use this at the beginning as well. This is also a very nice introduction image. If the first year students come into the E-zone, we tell them this is the E-zone. Discover it, especially now when they can't physically get there, and then we ask them questions. Where is the 3D printer? And then they need to tell us it's in front, or it's in the corner, the right hand corner, or something similar. So this is a very nice app to use, and I think in health sciences we can use it a lot more. Is there anybody here that has used this app before? Okay, so just to give you a bit more context, so this was the solving of a problem where they had to find the red question mark and listen to the problem. To stop the movement, click on the circle and then write a short solution to our problem. And then our problem is social distancing and writing exams and all those kinds of things. How should the layout of the E-zone change so that it's better? And then the moment they this was a part of a scavenger hunt, and then when they've answered the question, they could get the next clue.
So I think, Amanda, just worth saying over here that it's a real world problem, and you're showing them the real world environment. And so if you were to do the ICT decision tree thing on it again, I think it would probably score higher.
Yes. Yeah, so they use more than one tool because there's videos and everything embedded in it. And it's a real world problem. So I think this would be at the highest level, which is a level 6 in the ICT for learning. Yes. Yeah, so in short, that's it from me. I hope that you've enjoyed the session and that you've learned something new, and I look forward to hearing how you've used it, some of the apps, and maybe if you know of similar apps, please let me know, and then I would be more than happy to explore it. So thank you. Over to you, Janus. Or Prof. Cook.
No, all good. Thank you so much, Amanda, really. I was particularly excited about the prospect of these Tech Tuesdays for when we first designed this series, and for the opportunities to really learn practical ways in which we can, practical tools that we can use and practical frameworks and ways. And you certainly haven't disappointed. Brilliant. Thank you so much. And it's just, I get a sense, am I right, that this is, I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of there are many other apps that may perform some of these very same functions. And
yes,
it's a case of just learning by doing almost, and learning together with the students about how best to use these tools in which contexts.
Yes, yeah. So I'm lucky enough to have a job where I can explore all of these apps, and thank you so much for allowing me to share it with you.
Brilliant, and thank you. So thank you, everyone. Are there any final comments or questions for Amanda? Is everyone's happy? I'm sure that we can apply these tools, start using some of these tools more so than is being done. But I'm pleased to hear and note of people's involvement in these using these tools to date, and we can only go from that good foundation onwards and upwards. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Shira. Yes, noting a really great session from Shira. Completely agreed. Thank you, everyone. Yanis, what are we looking at next week as the start of our? Oh no, next week will be our teaching portfolio session. Am I correct?
No, so next week is the third session in this series, and it's on storyboarding.
So, brilliant.
Yeah, so how do you create a storyboard or a session for 21st century learning design?
So we didn't yeah. So last week was an exception, and now we're going with our third one next week. Brilliant.
Yes.
Okay, so and then the teaching and research portfolio, maybe if we could also add that going forward, thinking would be the week after that.
Unfortunately, with SAI in between, that muddled up our program. So we don't have portfolio session this round, but for the 3 starting after next week, then the 4th session would be a portfolio session hosted by Shira.
Brilliant, brilliant. Great. Thank you, Yanis. Thank you, everyone, and Amanda in particular. See you next week, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to see you. Thanks, Amanda. Great.